Hey everybody, it's Natalie with Treasures of Minnie, and this is the card we're going to be making today. Now, you guys know that I had been doing some art journaling here lately, and I really fell in love with it. And when I sat down to do a card video, I was having a hard time because I was enjoying the art journaling so much. So I decided to try to recreate a mini version of one of my art journal pages, and that is where this card idea comes from today. So I'm going to show you a few pages that I've already done here. I think I had a picture of this one on my Facebook. We adopted a new dog, so I wanted to do a page. And I mean, this is just, there's really no meaning behind some of these. I just start doing it and it goes. But this one, when my mother-in-law's in town, we have coffee every morning. And the day she left, I was kind of sad, so I sat down and created this page. But I thought today for a card that it would be really neat if I could try to recreate this page. But before we get started with that, I also wanted to share something really sweet. About 2 months ago, when we got here to North Carolina, my ex-husband and his 6-year-old daughter, Savannah, and our son and his girlfriend came to visit before we even had furniture. That's how excited we were to all be able to just visit. They live in Tennessee. And since we didn't have furniture, there wasn't much of anything to do. And his little girl, Savannah, and I sat down with my butterfly art journal that we're looking at here. And she wanted to play art teacher class. So this is her page, and I wanted to share her little art journal page. You can see her name up there. And what she did is she took this stencil that's also by Jane Davenport with the Butterfly Effect book, and she traced these herself. She did it all herself. She did 2 different flowers on here. And then we got out watercolors, and she was such a wonderful little girl to work with. I told her a little bit about what colors not to put next to each other so you don't make mud. And you can see I showed her a little bit on how to blend colors. I did this one right here and that one. And then you can see up here at top where she recreated those as well right here. And I think on this one she was doing the green and red, which you do have to be careful to not get mud. But as you can see, she did a really good job. So I just wanted to share her artwork with you guys today. And then yesterday I received this very adorable card from one of my very sweet subscribers, Jeanette. I was so excited to get this card in the mail, and one of the things that I noticed right off was her coloring. I just think that her coloring technique is absolutely beautiful. And she did that with Crayola colored pencils. So that just goes to show you do not have to have the expensive stuff, because I wouldn't have known that if I wouldn't have asked her. I mean, look how pretty it is. And thank you so much, Jeanette. It meant a lot to me. So we're going to get started with our card with a card base that is 8.5, scored at 4.25 by 5.5. And this is a like a brownish tan card base. Ugh. And this is a watercolor piece of paper that is 5.25 by 4. And I'm going to rip 3 sides of the paper because I want it to be torn looking. But I'm only going to do 3, the top, the bottom, and 1 side. If you remember from the art journal page that I showed you, it kind of had that on that page. And I'll show you that here in a second. This is going to layer on top of our card base just like this. And you can see here on the art journal page where I had done that on my page as well. So I'm kind of recreating this particular page of my art journal. So I'm going to take some of this Tim Holtz tissue paper, and I'm going to take some gel matte medium, and I'm going to attach this to my card base. So I'm just going to cover my entire front of my card base with some that matte gel medium. I'm going to lay my tissue paper over it and rub it down really good. I even use my bone folder a little bit so I can get creases out. Sometimes I like the creases, and this one I didn't want any. And with my Tim Holtz scissors, I'm just going to trim off the excess. And then once I've got that trimmed down, I'm going to put another thin layer of that matte gel over top. And I'm going to set it aside and let it dry. And while that's drying, I'm going to take some black gesso and I'm going to paint one side of our piece here that we had torn the 3 edges on. And you just need to do a good coat on there. Excuse me. Sorry about my coughing, and I know that sometimes when I breathe in, y'all can hear this low grumbling. That's my lungs. I don't have a bear in the room with me. After that was dry, I took some of this modeling paste and one of my stencils, and I placed it where I wanted it, and I'm just going to very carefully go over the top half of this. And here I'm scraping off any little bit that was on the edge that I didn't really want to stick up. Now while that's drying, I got a big bag of these Prima flowers like 2 years ago, and I still have a ton of them left. So with some black gesso, I am going to cover, I do not use all of these flowers, but I wasn't sure which ones I would want to use. So I just picked a good variety of them, and with my paintbrush and holding them in place with my tweezers, I'm just going to give them all one coat of some black gesso. And this is some Rub and Buff, and I put a little bit of that down as well on my craft mat. And with a very light touch, I'm just putting a little bit on the tip of my paintbrush and lightly kind of grazing across the surface of the flowers so that the gold kind of only gets on the raised parts. And yeah, so after I'm done with that, I'm going to let those dry, and I'm going to continue to work on some of the other elements. Like, for instance, this is a pack of like flourishes that was given to me a long time ago and I haven't used. And I am thinking that I want to put it right here, but this piece is going to stick off. So I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm just going to trim that off and kind of go along with the roundness of it to make it look like it wasn't even supposed to be there. And with some precious metals, well, actually, no, that's not what I'm doing. See this wooden piece right here? That is a wood, oh my goodness, what is it? I just drew a huge blank. Oh my gosh. It's a wood tag. I'm going to cover it with matte medium, and I'm going to put some of that Tim Holtz tissue paper over it, trim it down, and cover the top and the edges of it with matte medium again, and set it aside and let it dry. While it's drying, I'm going to take some of this precious metals in green gold, and I'm going to go over my flourish. This flourish, the green wasn't quite right in, and so if you have elements like this in your craft room and it's not quite the right color, just paint over it. Make it the color you need it. Now, while those things are drying, the modeling paste is dry. I want to curl up the edges of this. So I just cut like a little triangle piece, and then I roll each side in kind of at an angle, and it makes it look like old paper that's like curling on the edges. Because it's watercolor paper, I did have to fiddle with it a pretty good bit to get it to curl and lay, but you know, it works, and I really liked it in the end. And like right here, I didn't actually cut anything here. I'm just kind of curling up the torn edge that we already have. And this is what it will look like. But I still have some of that Rub and Buff on my mat here, so I'm going to take it, and with my finger, I'm going to add it around the edges of this piece, and especially over the curled, the pieces that curl up. And I still have even more left, and I don't want to waste it. So with my finger, I'm also going to rub it on the edges of this flourish as well. And then, oh, I'm also going to put it on my little wooden tag too, around the edges. And now for the fun part. I have these, one is by Inca Gold and one is by Metallic Cluster. They're all by, well, no, one's by Deco Art and the other is by Viva Decor. This one is Viva Decor, and it is dried out. It's dried out mess. But I figured that if I used a wet baby wipe and I rubbed at it pretty good, I could still use it. So The newer ones that I have by Metallic Luster that you're going to see me use in a minute, those are very creamy and I don't have to rub at them hard. But this just goes to show you, I mean, even though this is really dried out, just use a baby wipe and you can get it. This particular one is new, and you can see I just barely dap my finger in it. And you have to be really careful because a little bit goes a long way. So there's no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing right here. I am just adding color where I think I want it. And throughout this piece, I end up using this metallic-y orange, a metallic blue, a green one, a copper one, and another one by Inca Gold that is a platinum. And then I decided, there's a point in here that I decide that it's a little too bright. So I go over it with a brown gold by Viva Decor as well. But you'll notice I have to get back out my baby wipe because that one is very dried out as well. Now, you'll notice on here that the ones that are really dried out are the Inca Gold, the Viva Decor. But please don't think that means that they're not as good as the Art Deco ones. Because I got the ones that you see that are really dried out, I literally bought those 4 years ago. I would expect that in 4 years, they're dried out. So, the Art Deco ones that you see right here that I'm using, that Copper Kettle is the name of that one. I got them Sunday at Hobby Lobby. So they're very, very new and very juicy. This is that platinum one. And I really like the platinum because if you rub over it with a very light finger, right here I'm using a heavy hand, but you will see I go back in and I add more color and then I come back. And with a very light finger, I come back in with that platinum and it picks up just the raised parts and it looks really good. So I spent a lot of time on this, mainly because I was having a lot of fun with it. And you see, I keep going back and forth. Here's that brown gold. I was thinking it was a little too bright, and I just needed to tone it back some, and it didn't quite tone it back as much as I wanted. So I'm going to kind of bring out some of my brighter colors again, and in a little bit I use a ink spray by... I cannot pronounce that company. The one that does like the jelly roll pins and the I'm not even going to try, guys. It's called Terracotta. It's a walnut stain. I've had these for a very long time. You can see here, don't forget to go around the edges of your little wooden tag as well. But here in just a second, you're going to see me get back out that... Oh my goodness, I'm having such a hard time. I'm trying to hurry up before everybody starts waking up. Here, yeah, this one, the platinum. You can see just with a very light finger how it just kind of like adds a highlight to some of the spots. And here's where I'm going to go in with that terracotta walnut stain. And it made a mess. So I just sprayed it and then kind of blotted it with a napkin and then sprayed it again. And I did use my heat tool to kind of set it up. But it did help take out some of that color. Now to add some more texture, I just have this generic script stamp. And with some archival black ink, I'm just going to randomly stamp that here and there all over the place. I'm not even putting it on a block because I want it to be very random and broken up. I don't want it to be a solid stamped image. And then I am going to take some glossy accents and I will be ready to attach our little piece here that we're making to the front of our card. And I'm also going to attach the floral or the, this little thing. I put some glossy accent on it as well. And you do have to hold it in place for just a second. But once I got it all held down and in place and it was nice and glued down, I took some very cheap acrylic paint. It's a black. And I'm going to, with a small paintbrush, paint in all of the areas in between the little clock pieces that were originally black, but when we started adding the Inca Gold and the metallics over it, it got it kind of got into it, and then you couldn't see the clock pieces as well. So I just ended up doing that over the entire thing, and it was quite relaxing. And there are some places where it's kind of thin, and you can still see the other rubs that we put on there shine through, but that's okay. I liked that, and so I did just one coat, and I just went around the whole thing. And then we're going to be able to start, and there you can see it, we're going to be able to start adding our little elements. So with the flowers, I used some little brads and stuck them in the center. And with this smile charm that I had, I put 2 glue dots on the back of it and stuck it to the front of my wooden tag. And I'm just giving it a good press so that it'll stay on there good. And then with my glue gun, I am going to put a little dab of glue right in the center, and I'm going to attach my flowers to the front of my cards. And you can see on the back of the flowers, I just used some little brads that I had laying around to put in the center of the cards. Now I tried to use my glue gun to attach the tag, but it didn't work for some reason. You could see it pulled up some of my flourish there. So I just got out my glue dots because they seem to stick to it really well. I'm not sure why that wouldn't stick there, but it just wouldn't. So here is our card that was recreated from one of my art journal pages, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I would give it a try too if I was you. I had a lot of fun doing it. So now I have an art journal page with a card to match that I can send to someone. And here are some close-ups. Remember, you can find me on Facebook at Treasures of Minnie Craft Corner, Instagram at Treasures of Minnie, Pinterest at Treasures of Minnie as well. I am doing a Misty giveaway, but I will be drawing for that tomorrow. So you got to go now if you want to enter. Until next time, hugs and loves from my craft room to yours.